Okay, so welcome everyone. Welcome back after a bit of a summer break to the Forest Business Alliance Peer Learning Network. So glad to see everyone again. Hope you enjoyed your summer. And we're excited today to have Ryan Temple as a speaker from Sustainable Northwood. And I'll share a little bit more about Ryan briefly in a moment. But what we also wanted to take a moment to do today was reconnect. It's been, a little while since we've all been together and met, and people have had, might have been a few months since you've been here. So, and just to help Ryan get a sense of also who's in the room, just want to take a minute and go around and do introductions again. And then we're going to give a little brief update, reminder, kind of connection about what the Peer Learning Network is and the Forest Business Alliance, and how we're here to serve and how we can work with you. So we can just kind of refresh and reconnect on the mission and the roles and operations of how we are. So, but before that, let's see. Let's just have everyone come on if you would. It's so nice to see faces and actually hear from people. So let's just start with a brief round of introductions. And actually, so Ryan, maybe for that, if you wouldn't mind, we can stop the share, and then that way people can see each other more easily, and then we'll come back. And thank you. Perfect. So let's just go. Just Brady Bunch screen here. So I'll just start calling people. So I'm Kathleen. I'm with the Forest Business Alliance and helping facilitate these calls, and super happy to be here. Jim, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, let's see. Ooh. Am I mute? Am I on mute? No.
No, you're good.
I'm Jim Adrians. I'm working with the Forest Business Alliance on the Peer Learning Network with Vance and Kathleen. Good to see everyone.
And then Vance, I'll just call folks and we just go round robin like that.
Hi, everyone. Vince Russell with the Forest Business Alliance, and I run my own business called 3.xyz.
Thanks, Vance. He's the head honcho for these calls for us. And Chris.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Sacco, also FBA Alliance member, and I have my own consulting company called Aegis Conservation. Nice to meet everyone. Looking forward to this.
Thanks, Chris. Chris is involved in a lot of technical support and the TA for the grants and outlines and the applications and stuff. So thanks, Chris. Tom, go ahead.
Hey everybody, Tom Maseko. I'm an independent consultant based out of Chicago. I have a finance and investing background, so I've been working in and around the environmental space, providing business planning and finance consulting services for the last several years.
Thanks, Tom. Martin.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Martin Tveer, Biomass Program Director for the Watershed Center, one of the FBA team members as well. And I worked with Ryan, 6-7 years ago on some blue stain stuff. So it's been a while. Good to see you, Ryan.
Great. Thanks, Martin. Welcome. John, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. John Azevedo with Forager Fuels. I've been to a few of these and happy to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Welcome back. Laurel.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laurel Hickey. I'm a new wood utilization coordinator with the Sierra Institute for Community Environment. So I'm here on behalf of Jonathan Cusel, our executive director, and this is my first peer learning network. So nice to meet all.
Great. Welcome, Laurel. Glad you're here. Chuck.
Yes, I'm Chuck Detherow. I'm with the Western Shasta RCV out of Anderson, California, a little bit south of Lake Shasta. I'm a licensed forester and a technical service provider. So always looking for stuff to do with the wood, which seems pretty limited right now for small landowners.
Great. Thanks, Chuck. Welcome. Tamara.
Greetings, everyone. I was just noticing my name isn't up there. I'll change that. Tamara Costa.
Thankfully, I remembered.
Yeah, good job. Executive Director of Regenerative Forest Solutions and a co-founder of Timbershed, a new project that we just launched.
Do you want to say anything about Timbershed?
Not right now. That's okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, welcome. Glad you're here. Jasmine.
Hi, everybody. Jasmine Borgatti, and I worked with Happy Camp Community Action Inc. in Happy Camp, California, and we are currently working on a biomass campus project for the area. And this is my first time here, so happy to meet everybody.
Great. Thanks, Jasmine. Welcome. And Clark.
Hey everyone, my name is Clark Stevenson, work for the Watershed Research and Training Center with Martin. Very interested in this topic and have talked to Ryan in the past on everything that he's been able to accomplish up in the Pacific Northwest. Really interested in trying to build a local utilization campaign in California. So in that way, I feel like we have a lot to learn from him. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Clark. Welcome. And I think, is that everyone? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So thank you all for your introductions and presencing yourself in the room. And so I wanted to just briefly share, sort of as a reminder, kind of what the Forest Business Alliance is and what we're doing and why. And as you know, the front page of the website kind of just outlines the mission statement, if you will, providing technical assistance, workshops, and a peer learning network to increase local and regional capacity for applicants to CAL FIRE's Business and Workforce Development Program and other wood products or forest health funding programs. So we do that through a variety of ways, and we wanted to kind of specifically highlight those just as a reminder. I think several people, we had about 7 responses to the survey that we sent out a couple of months ago at the beginning of the summer. If you haven't yet done it, we'll put that in the chat. We would really appreciate hearing from you, especially if you've been able to participate at all. But this reconnect is partly due because it's been a while since we've met, and then also there's some new members, and then also just in response to some of the responses that we saw in the survey about, what is the FBA about in this piece. And so the way that we operate and the way that we provide the support is through this peer learning network. And this is meant as a platform for connection and sharing ideas and hearing both from experts in the field and experts locally, so that we're creating this kind of peer connection model that hopefully then the idea is that if you find people that you want to connect with, can take those connections and those conversations further. So this is a platform to help catalyze that can then be grown on the one-on-one basis or more. So this is one piece. We also do technical assistance and grant application support in a variety of ways. And Vance will talk just more about those briefly in a moment, as well as workshops. So specifics, we have a couple sawmill workshops and workshops on specific topics focus. And then we've done 2 site visits as well. So those are the pieces of, what we're kind of providing in terms of support and technical assistance and this connection piece. And just wanted to highlight those as a way of kind of reminding everybody like the breadth of what this is about and also what it's not about. And Vance, do you want to kind of dig any deeper in any of those or share some other thoughts?
That was great. Thanks, Kathleen. I think just one point to emphasize that the peer learning network is really about learning from peers and learning from each other, and even self-guided learning. If you have an idea or a theme or something that you want to learn more about, then we can do that as a group. It's not really about us or speakers telling you what to do. It's about your learning journey and your networking in the wood products industry. The other work we do is less bottom up and more top down, or more sort of technical assistance oriented. Just the peer technical assistance or the workshops are about experts connecting and helping you out. But the peer learning network is really supposed to be bottoms up and us learning from each other. So it's really saying we are all the experts, rather than the expert coming in and saying, I'm the expert, I'm gonna feed you my knowledge. So that there's just a slightly different twist in philosophy there, but we think that having both of those things as part of the Forest Business Alliance is going to help businesses and nonprofits or organizations working in this space to do better work, to garner more funds and to utilize more wood products across the landscape.
Great. Thanks, Vance. And I think we have time. And if anybody has specific questions or comments about that, we definitely like to hear that. We did create a space in the survey to see kind of if there's specific topics or there's specific methods of support that would be helpful. So we've had for people who have responded that, but I'd love to open it up now for if you have questions about this or comments or feedback, we'd love to hear that.
Yeah, I guess I'll just say thank you for convening us, and I'm curious where your outreach happens, if it's been strictly through CAL FIRE grant recipients in the past, or if it's open to other attendees from the wood products, manufacturing, and forestry sectors. Because I noticed that there are some newer efforts that aren't represented here, like the Alpengrow project, for example, or others. And so just curious about your, how you reach people.
Vance, go ahead. You want?
I mean, yeah, good point, Tamara. Alpenglow is sort of connected by a couple of degrees of separation. Regine works a lot with them, and we are hopefully, and actually, Martin, you've connected with them in the past as well, I think. But we are hoping to have a tour there someday when they're up and running. But to answer your question more broadly, we're reaching out to anybody that's that's working on forest health or wood products in the state. I mean, we do connect to folks outside of California, like Ryan, who's going to speak today, because there are folks that are doing amazing work outside of California, believe it or not. So yeah, I mean, really, we've actually made an effort to also try to connect a lot more folks from Central California and Southern California, and not always rely on folks that are in Northern California. I mean, who are all doing great work, but we also want to make sure the representation and the folks that participate are from all across the state as well.
It might be challenging for some to take time out of their days, during this. I mean, the lunch hour is great, but it, maybe time-wise, I'm
Yeah,
not sure when's best to reach people that are like actively manufacturing, for example. Like I know once we
yeah.
get operational, it'll be pretty harder for me to find time to participate, but I think it's great that you're bringing folks together and would love to hear updates. I thought the Sawmill 202 workshop went really well. So it was really successful and great, well attended.
Thanks. Yeah, it's great to hear. Yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, we might want to switch to a later time, like after work or like 7 or 8 at night. But yeah, we might want to do that.
Thanks, Tamara. Anyone else? And welcome, Sarah. We all did introductions before you arrived. Do you want to just pop on real quickly and introduce yourself and where you're from?
Hi, my name is Sarah Hoffheimer. I'm from San Jose, California, but I'm now in Butte Valley in the Chico area. I am here on behalf of Real Good Soil.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like if there are other questions and that they come to you during the meeting, you're welcome to put them in the chat or send me a message directly as well, and we'll find a way to get them answered for you. So with that, then we'll turn to Ryan. So a lot of you probably know of Ryan, and he's been a speaker before. He's the founder and president of Sustainable Northwoods, based in Portland, Oregon. And he's going to talk about strategies for long-term viability of wood product businesses and how successful rural businesses navigate cash flow, as well as other business development areas in marketing. So, and you're going to talk about Sustainable Northwood, so I'm not going to give the little intro to that because I'm sure that that's in your presentation. So I will just turn it over to Ryan. Thank you so much for being here, Ryan.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So just a quick introduction. Ryan Temple, the founder of Sustainable Northwest Wood. I've been doing this for 17 years now. Prior to that, I worked for the nonprofit organization Sustainable Northwest, and prior to that, I worked for the Forest Guild, running their community forestry program. So all in all, I've kind of been in this sphere for 30 years, I guess now, but still learning new things every day. For the purposes of the next 45 minutes or so, I want to reserve a good amount of time for conversation and questions, just to make sure that, you know, if there's something specific, piece of information that you're after, that we have the opportunity for me to provide that if I can. But also wanted to set the stage a little bit, talk about Sustainable Northwest Wood, what we do, and then was given a few prompts of some topic areas that might be of interest. So I'll just touch on those briefly and some of our experience. You know, maybe preface it all by saying that our business, we're based in Portland, Oregon. So in the city, we're a lumber yard. So my connectivity to rural businesses is that I am a purchaser from them. And so best part of my job is I get to spend about a quarter of my time out in the rural communities visiting with foresters and mills and that sort of thing. So let me just kind of do a rundown on Sustainable Northwest and what we're all about. So it's building with purpose. But my business really exists at the crossroads between rural production capacity around forest products and forestry, and in the green building community, or sort of more broadly, even like really anybody who utilizes wood products. What we recognize is there's a whole lot of businesses across the Pacific Northwest, including Northern California, that is in our definition of Pacific Northwest, that have very strong commitments to the forest and the communities. And at the same time, there's a marketplace of what I would call conscientious consumers. Some of them small private homeowners, and some of them very large corporations, but would love to make wood purchases that are consistent with their values. But what there was not was an easy means to make those transactions possible. In other words, consumer would go looking for that product and they'd say, can't find it, don't know who to talk to, too expensive, too much lead time, don't have what I want, whatever it might be. And at the same time, there are plenty of rural mills who did have the value set that matched those of the urban consumer, but nevertheless just really didn't know the best way to connect with that marketplace. And that's kind of why we came into existence, and really trying to empower the consumer to make a purchase choice that's, you know, that's not just necessarily less harmful, but in many cases actually very positive in terms of the impacts that it can have. As I mentioned, we were started by the nonprofit organization. We're still a wholly owned subsidiary of that organization. So it's somewhat of a unique business model. We provide a dividend back to the company. We're a Chapter C corporation. And so we give back to our shareholders. We're also a certified B corporation. And that's just kind of makes our values consistent across the board, not just in terms of where we purchase wood, but all of our daily activities and actions that we take as a company. Importance of the affiliation with the nonprofit Sustainable Northwest. I'm sure some of you are familiar with that nonprofit. At our very beginning, Lynn Youngworth with the Watershed Research and Training Center was also kind of what I would call maybe one of our co-founders, and you know, guiding lights and cheerleaders as we got this thing going. So she sort of provided a baseline for us from a rural community context. Martin Goebel, who was the director of Sustainable Northwest at that time, also encouraged me to get this thing going. And because of that interaction and overlap between those sorts of organizations, It just keeps us true to our values, right? Yes, we're a company. Yes, we have to be profitable in order to exist. But the point of the company is not profit. The point of the profit is so that we make a positive difference in the places where we work. And so there, that's, take a moment for me to pause and let people read what the mission statement is there. And it really is about a positive difference and empowering consumers to make that choice, which they would like to make, but have traditionally been challenged to find the right outlets for. Let's see, kind of by the numbers, there's about 50 different mills that we buy from. Some of them are larger, like the Collins companies and the Chester sawmill down there. And some of them are just, one or two people, husband, wife, father, son, whatever it might be, running a wood miser. Over the course of the history of the company, we've been able to channel about $40 million back into these communities through direct purchasing. Sometimes I kind of think of it as it's a little bit of a Robin Hood sort of scenario where we will buy local, we will sell anywhere to anyone. If I can channel money from San Francisco or New York City into these small communities, small forest-based communities, I'm more than happy to do that however I can. So now diving into a couple of the topics that the folks that Jim had said I might want to touch on. So first, a few of the key elements of our company. I'll talk about structure, strategy, and marketing. Structure I've already talked on a little bit. Trying to think what I might add there. I would say for anybody who's looking to start an enterprise on this call or in your communities, I would make myself available as a resource to kind of understand the particulars of the reason we chose this particular corporate structure, and sort of more specifically kind of what the pros and cons are. Truthfully, one of the reasons for this separation between the for-profit and the nonprofit early on was a conservative approach from the nonprofit, which was, well, if this thing goes belly up, because it seems like a risky venture, most social enterprises have a hard time succeeding. Fortunately, we've done all right. But if it were to go belly up, they wanted a level of separation that would protect the nonprofit from any financial duress that might have occurred for the for-profit corporation. The structure also was designed so that dividend payment could be made. And then we have a little bit of overlap with the board. I have a small board of directors, just, up to 7 of us, but the majority always need to be what we call crossover members from the nonprofit organization. So currently I've got 5 board members. 3 of them are from the nonprofit corporation. And the idea there is just to ensure the mission consistency. I mean, I think I would feel comfortable saying that having come from that nonprofit background, I'm a good sort of grounding for that mission consistency, but I might not always be here, right? So we put a structure in place so that fulfilling mission was always core to what Sustainable Northwest would do. Our overall strategy it's about market differentiation. And so, as I said earlier, there's a consumer base that kind of wants to do the right thing, but doesn't really know what that is. And sustainability is a very broad term, and one that, although it's in our name, we tend to not try and focus on. Our differentiation, I would say more than anything else, comes from real and tangible stories that we can tell about our products. A key example would be the Portland Airport, which we recently supplied most of the wood into that new structure for. They were interested in understanding the specifics around the forestry behind it. A good bit of that wood we provided was FSC certified. Not all of it was, but when they began the project, they came to us and said, we would love to not just be able to offer wood from the Pacific Northwest and wood from well-managed forests. We recognize those are challenging in and of themselves, perhaps at this scale, but we also want to be able to tell the stories of the people where the wood came from. And so we're able to track that wood back to 12 different forests, tribes, community forest, family forest, public forest, some private industrial forest, but really pinpoint where it came from. And that decision by them and by us, I think, is really indicative of what I'm finding in the marketplace. That really becomes most compelling for people is that human and community element and the ability to capture and retell those stories. It is not without challenges. The large scale lumber market tends to work at a commodity sort of anonymity scale where all of the logs come into a yard, they all get mixed together, and who knows what goes out the back end in terms of actual traceability back to a source, kind of like sausage making in a way. And a lot of the industry is going to stay that way. I'm not going to pretend like we have the wherewithal and the leverage to sort of reshape an industry that's been working this way for 150 years on the West Coast. But one of the advantages that smaller businesses have is the ability to do things a little bit differently, is the ability to not just tell the story of their business, but also because many of them have a little bit more direct connection to their supply base, the forest owners that they buy from, to also be able to translate their story into the marketplace. So that strategy is kind of underpinned most of our marketing efforts.
Ryan, can I just interrupt for 1 second? Do you prefer questions throughout or at the end?
Why don't we do this? Why don't I take an occasional pause? And when I take an occasional pause, we can do questions rather than people trying to like raise their hands. And then we can also do a batch of questions at the end. So
Okay.
this
Tamara
might be a
mentioned
good
she had a
place for
question
that
on
pause.
structure. Yeah, great. Okay, Tamara mentioned she had a question on structure. So go ahead, Tamara, if you'd like to unmute. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Hi, Ryan. I was recently recommended to speak with you by Jason Grant, who's on my board of directors. Wonderful person. So we're looking at developing a very similar structure here. RFS, Regenerative Forest Solutions, a nonprofit, is forming Timbershed, a benefit corporation. We've really looked at your model as an example, and I have more questions that we can talk about perhaps offline, but meeting the mission, the legality of having a nonprofit investment in a for-profit corporation is pretty specific, and that's one of my questions. I'm also curious how many years it took before Sustainable Northwest Woods was on its own, and how much investment flowed from the nonprofit to start, and how much ownership the nonprofit maintains today, or just a few.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I'll try and capture them all, but let me know if I miss one. So let's see. Sustainable Northwest is still the sole shareholder of the corporation. So the reason that might change is if we were to seek additional equity in the company, but we haven't done that. We've been self-financing through the history of the company. A little bit of debt finance in there too. I'll talk about that. So they are the sole owner of the company. In terms of startup, let's see. The funds that allowed us to start up were from two philanthropic sources that did flow through the nonprofit corporation. So that structure was beneficial at that point. One of them was a program-related investment from the Meyer Memorial Trust, which was repaid. The other one was what was called a recoverable grant from the Ford Foundation, Ford, New York City, not Ford family from Roseburg, Oregon. And the recoverable grant, meaning that we would pay it back after 8 years. After 8 years, we went to pay that back, and they let us know that because of our mission fulfillment, that it was going to be forgiven to us, which was very nice. So it essentially became a grant at that point. And what I learned is they assumed they were never going to see that money again. So from day one, they posted it as a grant on their books. They just never told us that till we came with check in hand saying we're ready to repay you. And I think it's like legally we actually can't take this back because we called it a grant. In terms of how long it took for us to kind of get to where we'd say we're standing on our own 2 feet. Well, because of that startup money, some of which was used for capital expenditures and some of it which we kept in the bank for operating expenses, that money gave us our runway to get started. It took us 5 years to get to a break-even point. With the losses getting a little bit closer to it each year. So year one, there was a lot of loss associated with that. So we kind of planned for it. By year 5, we're getting really close to the break even. Since we've crossed that threshold, that would have been back in 2013, I guess. We've stayed over that line consistently since then, which is nice. As a result, rather than the nonprofit giving to us, we're giving to the nonprofit. And so each year we look at how we've done that year, what our anticipated upcoming cash needs might be in terms of reinvestment in the company, and then collectively make a decision for a dividend payment back to the nonprofit. It's never huge, $50,000, $75,000, something like that. It's unrestricted, and anybody in the nonprofit world knows that unrestricted income is kind of like gold. So it's unrestricted. And it's also, I think, really nice for the nonprofit to be able to talk about how they've diversified their revenue stream through an owned business. So it's more than token, but there are token aspects of it, I think, which are really valuable for them as well. And I think lastly, kind of for the nonprofit, that money is value, but I would have to say for them, perhaps the biggest value has been able to use us as a poster child for like really very tangible business-driven successes. A lot of folks that they pitch themselves to have a harder time wrapping their arms around and minds around collaborative work and there's some of the important things that nonprofits do. But when they talk about somebody, something that buys and sells things, well, that I understand. And so it's been, I think, fun and fulfilling for the nonprofit to talk about us as well. And for that, maybe even has more value for them than the money we provide. Did I capture everything? I think I missed 1 or 2 things, maybe.
I think, well, yeah, no, that's good for now. Thank you.
Yeah, and then I will say that I saw Jason last week, and he mentioned that that I might hear from you. And so if you'd like to follow up in more detail, I'm available. We'll schedule that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. Does anyone else have a question at this point?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, what was there another one?
No.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
I'll say a little bit more on marketing and then move on to a couple other things. So our marketing, I think I ended saying that there's a lot of this kind of story-based approach to that. How do we do it? I think would be the next thing I might touch on. We definitely, stories lend themselves well to social media, so we rely pretty heavily on social media. I spend a lot of one-on-one time, or I should say one-on-20 time with architecture firms, with builders, where I go in and do lunch and learns and Zoom calls. And oftentimes I'm not really peddling in wood when I'm doing this. I'm kind of peddling in knowledge and information, and that might lead to a sale down the road, or it might not. And it's the same thing with people who come in our door. Everybody who leaves, we do retail business too. Everybody who leaves might not leave with a piece of wood in their hand, but I can guarantee you they're going to leave having learned a little bit something more about forestry and rural communities and restoration work and wildfire risk reduction, or whatever the topic that we happen to get into is. And I think all of that is important because to me, it builds what I consider to be the core piece of our marketing efforts, which is community. We really rely very heavily on a community of shared values, not just in the green building community, but among forestry professionals, among landowners, among sawmills. We also co-host a group called the Build Local Alliance. We have had a Portland chapter for a number of years. We're starting a Seattle chapter now of the Build Local Alliance, which is designed to create space for folks vertically integrated along the supply chain just to spend more time together. Sometimes it is in the woods, sometimes it's at a mill, sometimes it's at a large project that an architect has designed and had built. But the idea is to gather together physically in person, loggers, landowners, sawmills, architects, green builders, engineers, folks from diverse backgrounds. Oftentimes the yard signs that they have might be very different, but there's a value set that's actually quite consistent between them, and sort of building that mutual respect and understanding, and the whole community associated with it is kind of core to our identity, and our identity is just a big piece of our marketing. So this is actually my last slide. So we'll talk about this, but again, maybe transitioning from that one to this one. Any other thoughts before I move on to the next thing? And next we're going to be talking about more like how do I interface with the vendors and suppliers, and what value might we bring to them.
Hey, Ryan. I've got a question just about the Building Local Alliance that you were talking about.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know if there's any encouragement or folks that are asking specifically for, like Oregon specific wood, or anything that's brought that local build alliance towards specific projects that, one source from specific procurement pathways, or or even just showcased on a mutual map.
Yeah, for sure. And people, local will mean different things to different people, right? I mean, for some folks, it becomes sort of hyper local to say, do you have any urban salvage? Or we're cutting down some trees to make this building. Can you repurpose these trees? As like it came from the very lot that it's on. For most folks, Pacific Northwest, right? You kind of call it a 300 to 500 mile radius fits the bill, I think, of what they would consider to be local. We do find ourselves, though, doing state or publicly, state-funded projects, whether it be Washington or Oregon, for whom local means state definition. I want this to come from Oregon. I want this to come from Washington. And then if we can map it out physically, draw that supply chain to say, this is the forest, these are the 3 or 4 forests that it went to, coming to this mill, and then going out to your project. That's oftentimes what they're after. Folks who are doing green building projects, whether they be Living Building Challenge or LEED, and we could elaborate on those at another time if you're not familiar with them. They would have their own specific definitions that are built into the standards that they're trying to adhere to, and but we can differentiate ourselves because some people just don't have that information at their fingertips, and we always do.
Yeah, right on. I appreciate that. Thanks. I like this bullet point list here, and I think I might have a few questions following up. But,
okay. Yeah. So for the sawmills, how is it that we help them, right? I mean, first of all, I guess I'll begin with the fact that I'm calling them our client, right? And when I say I'm a lumber yard, you might assume to say, oh, that means your client then are people who buy your wood. And I try to turn that on its head a little bit and say, actually, our clients are the people who provide us the wood. Nothing that we do would be possible without them. They are the people, the businesses, the communities that are really dear to our heart, and our reason to be is to do whatever we can to keep them going. So they are our client. Yes, the people who buy the wood are clients too, but I like to think of it this way. And so what do we do for them? A lot of them are kind of chipping away at things on their own, cutting some custom framing packages for the community, and we want to encourage that. Some of them are already running diverse economies. Maybe, maybe they're putting up hay, maybe they're doing fencing. They're going to take off during hunting season. They might have a job with the road crew and run the mill on the side. But, kind of have to meet them where they are. But what we found is really useful is to be somebody who's there for them when they need it. Sort of this notion of reliable market. And so, I'll tell some of these guys, listen, if you've got 3 or 4 weeks where you're not busy and you'd like to have a little income and you want to fire up the wood miser and cut some juniper for me, you've got a standing PO, right? Or if you're cutting a custom beam package for a neighbor down the road, and when you're milling that up, you're going to end up, as you're producing your 6x material, you're going to end up with a lot of 1x and 2x coming off the side of those logs that you don't know what to do with. Build those up into pile, and I'll bring them into my inventory, and I'll turn them into decking, or I'll turn them into siding, and I can find a market for those. So to try and be an entity that's not just calling them up when I'm in a pinch and I need something in a hurry, but to be somebody who's reliable for them when they're in a pinch. When they've accumulated a little bit too much of something and they're not sure what to do with. I'm not going to pretend like I'll buy anything from anyone at any time. But we try to provide that reliable market for them because we found that kind of filling in those blank and dead spaces for some of these mills that are already operating is the highest and best value that we can provide. Cash flow. Let's see. So a couple things that we do on that level. One is pay very promptly. So I might not get paid for whatever 1 and 2 months, 60 days or something on a job, but we get money out to our sawmills within a week of getting delivery on anything. Sometimes we'll take that even a little bit further from a cash flow assistance point of view. Financing a log deck in particular can be challenging. They need to pay that logger or the hauler or the landowner, whoever, when that log lands at their mill site. But they're not going to be creating cash of their own for that for some time. We've actually provided, essentially it's a loan, but it's a loan that's guaranteed by the wood that's going to be purchased. A loan to buy logs so they can get those logs in the deck. As they start producing, let's say that there's a truckload that's that's valued at $20,000. I'll pay $10,000 of it cash, and then $10,000 would be used to, by retiring the loan that was provided to them to buy that log deck. So essentially, I'm getting paid back for the loan by discounting loads of lumber as I might buy them from them. I don't know if I made that clear or not. It made sense to me. And I'm guaranteed by the log deck, right? This has never happened, but should somebody default, then it's a very simple loan document, and it's written such that I would have a claim on their log deck should they not be able to do that. And that's just to protect us, but it's never come to that. There's been times that we've had to renegotiate things, and that's always been kind of easily done. So I think that prompt payment, in some cases financing. And then lastly, I guess what I'll say on the cash flow is really trying to reverse the way things get priced. Most lumber is like this is random lengths. This is the price. This is what I'm going to pay you for it. Take it or leave it. We try and find and do products that exist a little bit outside of the commodity scale. I mean, I sell plywood, I sell framing lumber, I sell commodities also. But I think where we're most competitive is in the non-commodity goods. And the other thing that's really nice about selling those is I can ask the mill, how much do you need for me in order to run a viable business based on these products? I get a price from them. I figure out what my added costs are. I put my margin on it, and then I take that to the marketplace. So basically, we begin with what's it take for a sawmill to survive, and hopefully, in many cases, very much realistically, they're asking that same question up to the land manager. They're doing thinning, wildfire risk reduction, restoration work, salvage work, just good old sustainable forestry, whatever. But what do you need for those logs to pay for the land management practices that are important to you? That gets embedded in their price of the lumber. They give that price to me. I'm saying this is what, that's what it's going to cost to do it. This is what we're going to do. Now, the sky is not the limit, right? There have to be sideboards on it, and there has to be equity and consistency among mills. If one mill says, I need $3, and the other mill says, I only need $2, I can't really pay one mill 2 and another 3 for the exact same thing. We work that out. But that's another place where I think we help with cash flow, is we really try and understand what's required for a family-based mill to survive, and how can we develop products from develop value-added products from their primary produced products that make that work for them. Quick break, and then I'll do the last one, business support, I guess.
Any questions for Ryan?
Are you doing much resaw, or is that subbed out to other
Oh, yeah,
contractors?
great. We don't. We sub all that out. So I the state of the product that I buy does vary. Generally, what I would prefer to buy is kiln dried rough stock. Sometimes I buy it green, and I've got kilns in Portland. If it needs to be kiln dried, not everything does. If it needs to be kiln dried, I can outsource that kiln drying piece of it. Sometimes I'll buy finished product if there's a mill that's got has a molder also, and they can put a pattern on something, and then I'm happy to buy that finished product for them. But generally, we try and keep that rough stock on hand when I'm producing things like decking, paneling, siding, butcher block countertops, flooring, sort of outside of those commodity goods, the structural items, which are maybe less relevant to this group, I'm going to assume. When I'm doing those, I like to buy in the rough, and then I've got 3 or 4 different outfits within 50 miles of Portland who can do the value-added processing on it. We've chosen not to do it because it's not our area of expertise. We probably don't do enough volume of any one of those things to justify the capital expenditure and the equipment necessary to do it. And I would I would rather support an existing business rather than try and set up something that replicates and duplicates and competes with what they're already doing.
Mhm. Do you lose on that transportation? I mean, it sounds like you're shipping stuff to and fro.
There's a cost associated with it. So, for anything that's inbound, it's just embedded in the cost of goods sold, right? So inbound freight just becomes part of our cost of goods sold, and that gets passed directly onto the customer. We have a couple trucks, and so we try and keep our distribution or our network of remanufacturing businesses within a haul radius that we can serve off of our own trucks. There's still a cost associated with it, but then it just sort of becomes an operating cost of doing business, not associated with any particular product. So I've got a driver, and I've got gas, and I've got insurance, and I've got depreciation on a vehicle, and those things. But it's not overwhelming for us. Where it does get to be, it pinch us a little bit. And I think we've just learned to build this into our pricing better over time, because I think we underestimated the cost. Is once we really start moving things around, like, oh, I've got to send this 200 miles away to get fire treated, or I've got to send it to a specialized pre-finishing facility over on the Oregon coast or whatever. And so for a while, we just kind of missed that when we developed our customer pricing. Now we just try and do a much better job of embedding it in our pricing. So while it is an operating expense for us, ultimately it just get a little bit better margin, and that somewhat increased margin is intended to cover those unanticipated or operating costs that I think you're referring to, transportation based. But it's really, I think something that we just learned as we go, as we went, was fully accounting for and understanding what all of those little hidden costs are. And this last point, this business support, and how do we help them in terms of running successful businesses. I had mentioned that I'd said, tell us what you need for this, and we'll pay it. When I started in the world of juniper, everybody was saying like, we need, if we could make $600 1,000 on our juniper, we'd be doing fine. Let's do it at 600,000. It's like, okay, if you're sure. And then I also started watching all of these businesses struggle. And some of them go out of business. Like, hey, what's going on? It's like, we're not making any money. I was like, well, maybe did you fully understand your cost? And so that 600 1,000 over time has increased to 1,320 1,000 that now we're paying for rough green juniper. So it's more than doubled to get them to where they really need to be. I think, but prices are always increasing. Fuel and things are variable, but to get them to where they need to be, kind of to your point, Tamara, really kind of understanding all of those costs. And for me, trying to help them understand those costs so they don't sell themselves short and put them out of their business, which is detrimental to them and me both, because we're in this together.
I've got a follow-on question to that comment. We're kind of in a slump right now with prices across the board for lumber, at least according to Random Lengths. I know that you're a broker and you have a number of different species, so in products that you can sell, interior, exterior, structural, non-structural. Do you mind just talking about strategies that have been useful to you over the years on weathering that volatility and trying to support those suppliers with their needs?
Yeah, I mean, so on the commodity side of goods, we are at the mercy of those same external factors sort of beyond our control. Now, to the extent that which my pricing is kind of on a margin basis, I'm going to take whatever the mill's selling it to me, Collins companies, and I'll add 30% to it and resell it. Well, I'm adding 30% to 550 1,000, whatever it's selling right now, or 30% to 900 1,000, or during COVID all the way up at 1,600 1,000. That 30%, 30% of those numbers are very different actual whole numbers on that. We're designed such that we'll be okay even when the lumber prices are down, because our margin stays the same on a percent basis. What I like about the value-added products is that we're, for both me and my suppliers, is we're really not beholden to those market vagaries anymore, right? There's just a lot, those prices can be a lot steadier. We also do a lot of hardwood lumber, madrone, tan oak, black oak, Oregon white oak, myrtle wood. Then again, those prices have just changed very, very little over the years, for both the log prices that the mills are buying and what I'm buying of the mills. And so that consistency is great. I'm really not competing at that large scale industrial level. And so I have a lot more elasticity in terms of how I want to price that product. Or even taking what I would consider to be a commodity product, white fur, for instance, and saying, how can we turn a commodity raw material into a non-commodity finished good? And so, we sell white fur, tongue and groove paneling, right? That sort of clean, bright, whitewashed look. People are buying Doug fir and whitewashing it to get this white look on their interior paneling because that was in. And it's like, well, why don't we take white fur, skip the whitewashing stage, have something that costs a little bit less and is doing better by the forest, and have that be the product that we sell. So sometimes I can even take a commodity good, move it into a non-commodity product, and allow me to as you said, to kind of weather those times with some creativity and proprietary product development and marketing that we might do.
Yeah.
Ryan, we probably have time for one more question, depending on the length. Does anyone else? I know people, I was so fascinated, I just forgot the time. And so Vance just reminded me, we're almost at time. But does anyone else have other questions? Or Clark, did that answer your question as well?
It did. I actually have a follow-up question, but I'll wait, see if anyone
Okay,
else.
let's see if anyone else does, and if not, you can go ahead.
And I'll say that anybody should feel free to reach out to me. I guess if you want to share if my contact information isn't already known, feel free to share it.
Great.
I'm available to help out for sure.
Great.
Would
Thanks
like
for
to.
that, Ryan. Yeah. So Clark, why don't you go ahead and we'll end with that question.
Awesome, much appreciated. Yeah, this might be a bit of a longer question, but you're saying that you have strong ties and are continually working with the nonprofit Sustainable Northwest. And I know that Sustainable Northwest has, a wood advisor role, and I would love to hear, how both the Sustainable Northwest wood advisor role and your role in selling the product has evolved over time, and where you all complement each other when you're engaging architects, or how that all works to build that coalition in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, yeah. 80% of the time, I think that those two programs complement each other. 20% of the time, maybe they don't, and that's okay, I think. And not only is it okay, I think it's probably important. I know that one of the things that the Wood Markets Advisory Program is sensitive to, and rightfully so, is making sure that there's not sort of any perceived impropriety. It's like, well, wait a minute, you're advising us to buy wood, and yet you own a lumber yard at the same time, sort of. Is there a conflict here? And so the Wood Advisory Program really tries to is careful about doing a good job of advising on sort of the full breadth of roles and possibilities that are available for somebody sourcing wood, of which Sustainable Northwest Wood is just one. We're somewhat of a unique one in that we're one that represents several. Uh, but um, but they, and I've encouraged them to do this, is when you're doing your wood advisory work, please think well beyond us in terms of the resources that are available to them. The other thing that's kind of an interesting inconsistency perhaps is how we might choose to define sustainability and how we do tracking. The Wood Advisory Program, to a certain extent, is in a position of needing to defer or default to their client a little bit. If they're working with Amazon and Amazon says, this is our wood procurement policy, we just want to know that it came from the I'm making this up right now. So I'm not saying this is what Amazon says, but let's say for this project, we just need to know that it came from the state of California. We don't care about anything beyond that. We just want California. And so the Wood Advisory Program would say, well, you sure you don't want to do more? And they say, nope, this is what we're doing. Wood Advisory Program will meet them where they are. If somebody comes to me and says, I just want wood from Oregon, I don't care about anything else, they'll get wood from Oregon, but like it or not, they're going to get the everything else as part of it, right? I mean, we have customers that come here all the time, not asking for FSC certified plywood. All the plywood we carry is FSC certified, so they're gonna get it whether they want it or not. Because we allow our values and our purchasing to kind of to drive the conversation rather than necessarily having to be responsive to somebody else. So we've got slightly different approaches. And I think, the nonprofit would say, like, as long as we're moving the needle in the right direction, there's good happening here, and we'll go after them a little bit harder next time, but let's just kind of get them in the door. For me, I definitely try and keep that bar as high as I can all the time, and keep raising that bar on a daily basis.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan, for your time and answering some of my questions. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Ryan. This was really, really fascinating and helpful. And thank you, Jim, for putting Ryan's contact info in the chat. So if anybody didn't see that, you can go ahead and capture that now to take it. And it's also, of course, on their website, snwwood.com. So,
and I'll close saying, I mean, I know, everybody's context, conditions, situations is unique and different. And I don't pretend to understand or have sort of any sort of silver bullet solutions for anybody. But, love to hear about the particular situations anybody's up against. And if there's ever anything even of the smallest little kernel of insider experience we've had that's been useful. Sharing it is what I want to do.
Great.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah. So Vance, did you have any closing comments before we end or anything you want to add?
No, nothing from me. Just thanks very much, Ryan. Really appreciate you
Yeah.
taking the time today to talk and also making that offer to help folks out as well. It's really very much appreciated.
Yeah. And so just a reminder for everyone, we post these presentations on the YouTube channel for the Forest Business Line, so you can go ahead and watch that again or share it with others as you like. And our next month meeting will be back at the normal day, Tuesday, October 21st. And we'll send more information out about that soon, along with a link to the survey. If you haven't taken that already, we again love to hear from you. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here and for your time. I hope this was as helpful as everyone thought. Yeah. All right. Take care.
Thanks,
You.
Scott.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.